Hey,
Hey!
welcome back.
Oh.
Hello there. Welcome to another Bad Batch. Oh, no. Visions
Visions.
stream.
Sorry, I wear the wrong shirt today, I guess.
But the Band
By the
Batch
Bad
is
Batch.
here. I have
The
James
band batch is back.
over here, Justin over here, and I'm Xanthe. Today we're going to be talking about The Elder,
Yeah.
the music and sound thereof. It was composed by Michiru Ōshima, who also composed the music for The Twins.
Yes.
It's pretty wild that this is the same studio that did the Twins. I don't know much about this studio, but it's pretty different this episode from that episode. I don't know. It seems like they've got a pretty good range of styles, it seems.
Well, the two different Studio Trigger creative heads, I guess, they each took one on.
I see.
So one of them did one and the other did the other. Stuart said, Stuart, did you do some last minute studying?
Yeah, us too.
Yeah.
So this one was interesting. It was definitely very different. Jonah, that's okay. Good to see you. I hope life's busy but okay.
Good busy.
Yeah,
So
us
this
too.
one-
We haven't been. I
know.
I basically haven't been part of the show in like
2 weeks.
3 or 4 weeks or something. Yeah.
Took a little
Wow.
break and you ran away.
I don't know why we're all laggy again. Justin and I, we were totally fine last week. James, you broke it.
I think I broke it. Yeah.
But anyway, shall we go with our usual roundtable of guessing games, or shall we sort of talk about what's going on in this first? It's so weird because it's like the whole soundtrack is 5 minutes.
Yeah. I wanted to mention that it was such a short. We didn't. I don't think we didn't even get the first music cue until about, I think, 3:18. I mean, if you don't count the logo coming in.
Yeah, I wrote that down too.
wrote-
I kind of was noting like, hey, there's no music yet. Interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of silence and atmosphere to kind of like drag us into this episode.
How did you feel like your first time watching it at the very beginning?
What do you mean by feel?
Were you like, why is it so quiet?
Yeah. I mean, it's very dialogue heavy at the front, right? Which is different than some of our episodes so far. There's been a lot of action in the season up into this. I keep coming back to this theme, whereas like I binged this, so I was a little bit fried, but definitely by now. Like by now, I was just like, "Whoa, sword fight, sword fights, Star Wars anime, sword fights. What's going on in any of these episodes?" So my first time watching this, I was definitely like, I couldn't even follow the plot. And in fact, coming back and watching this, I was like, "Oh, there's like this whole thing with like the kids that I missed the first time around."
Oh my gosh!
I'm like, because it was all like a blur. It was just an all out, Star Wars anime blur the first time I watched this. So. But going back and watching it the second time, maybe I could comment on is, going back and thinking like, hey, this is really quiet. It's they're really laying into like the natural soundscape of this. So in some ways, when the music kicked in, it almost felt like it was almost jarring because we had zero music yet. And it was like a lot when it does kick in, it's like quite like densely orchestrated in some ways.
Yeah, totally. Seeing this I mean, I didn't binge it all at once. I kind of did 2 episodes at a time, and this episode has always really stuck out to me as I'm really, really enjoying the story and really kind of thinking like where this landed. Say this was part of canon in some ways. It's kind of like this mention of the Sith being, long gone for such a while. But it wasn't until the second viewing and studying for this episode that I realized there really is not a lot of music in this. It wasn't something that stuck out the first time, but the second time, absolutely. I think listening to the soundtrack up on YouTube, I was like, oh, that track's done. Oh, that track's also done. Where are we?
Yeah. And they're short cues too. They're not
Really?
very long. In fact, there's a lot of times during the fight where there's also like the main fight where there's like not a lot of music either.
Totally.
A lot of reveling in the natural drama of just the sounds that occur naturally in the environment in this episode for sure. Except there was this one little cue that I did prepare to play for you today. That stuck out to me because it was very different than everything else in the episode. Can I play it for you?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. All right, here we go. Like anyone hear this little part in this episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
It almost like that little mandolin-y kind of.
Well,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
when, like, you know, like when the koto goes to like held notes, it's just it's always like tremoloed, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Sort of like
Yeah.
a little village bride thing. Very like simple and definitely more like lighthearted, I would say, than all of the rest of the ones.
So
and like how it
yeah.
like, ended on this like sus2 chord, which is like, I don't know, it compared to the rest of the harmonies in the other tracks, it's very tonal, I guess.
Super tonal and really different from everything else. And what I mean, I guess we haven't really said yet for viewers like where this is.
Oh yeah, does anyone know where this is? Where that part comes in, or even like?
So Xanthe obviously knows it. Justin, you recognize it, do you know where this happens?
I'm pretty sure. Even being a short episode, sometimes some of these things throw me off. It's funny. Is it a moment where he's kind of doing the 5 or 6 winks between different eyes to the kids? It's like, I'm gonna do this,
right?
And then I go wink with my other eye.
And then they all wink at the exact same
time, and it's like they're all immediately good at it. When I feel like it's not easy for everyone to wink.
That's funny, Xanthe. That's funny. That's your response to this is like, huh? It's not easy. Can you wink, Xanthe?
Well, yes, but like,
because I know a couple of people that just cannot wink.
Well, yeah, me too.
Like,
that's why I'm like, how is it? Yeah,
that's funny. I didn't even think about that. Where you're like, they can all wink. Not everybody can do that.
At the same time.
So unrealistic.
That's really funny. That's a really funny reading of that scene. Show offs. But yeah, this is the kid scene. This is like the innocent kid scene, and I'd like to just call a little comparison. What does this scene remind you a little bit of?
Well, it reminds me of the Bad Batch. It reminds me of the.
Yeah, let's hear it. Okay. I love how you just remember this theme. I love that theme is just living rent free in Xanthe's head.
Think about it
Like
all
you
the
can just
time.
whip that out whenever you need to. Unfortunately,
Got it.
that theme is just there forever now.
Yeah. It really is baked in
So
my head. Yeah.
that's hilarious. So what do we think in terms of if we had to do a showdown of the cheesy kid music? Which one would win here, y'all?
Oh,
Which kid theme wins?
I mean, the other one is great because it immediately does the na 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 for me kind of a thing. So
Oh,
that
that's true. It's got a little
gives
pocket bell in there.
that I would say that one wins, but this still has
Your
a very.
Bad Batch wins for you,
I think
Justin.
the Bad Batch one wins for the childlike theme.
I guess it depends on what we're evaluating exactly.
Okay.
If we're talking,
What about just like which one do you like better? I guess.
I like
maybe.
this one better.
Yeah,
Context of the heart.
likewise, for sure.
But the other one, like, I like the other one because because I dislike it so much. So it comes back around because it's like that campiness where I like it because it's like I think it's so ridiculous. But like
Yeah.
because of that, I also like it. So it's hard to know like where the actual liking begins and ends. But it doesn't matter. It clearly I remember it. I like it. It's funny to
Yeah.
me. But just like as a cue, I like this one better.
Yeah, likewise. But I feel like they both feel similarly out of place within the context of the episode that they're in. To me, at least to my ears, like that, I didn't hear anything that really called back to this theme anywhere else, and everything else sounded super different than this.
That's
To
true,
my
but
ears.
but this one is but this comes toward the beginning, so we haven't heard all like how wild
Sure.
it gets yet. So
Sure,
yeah. I also think this
Yeah.
one has like a lot more. It feels like there's more temp. It feels like time is shifting a little bit more, even though it's pretty straight ahead, like 4/4. It does feel like there's some rubato and it's not like completely on the train tracks. And I think those held notes with the tremolos like really
Yeah.
help establish that for me, sort of like the breathing spaces, which makes more sense given that the scene is like if we're comparing it to the marketplace scene in the Bad Batch, that's like an event, like everyone's running around at that point, or not necessarily, but like it's a very like active scene where things are happening and it's all like kind of comedic and you know things are jumping places and we're looking all these other places, and here it's like more of a tender moment and it's more of a back and forth between you know the Padawan and the kids, like
Yeah.
with the shots going from like one to the other. So the held notes almost they kind of give me that like volleying sense back and forth.
Yeah, it's kind of trust me, I'm a good person kind of a thing. I mean, they mentioned that the village is shy, right?
Yeah, and this is kind of a shy theme.
Which I thought was also interesting because in this episode there are only 3 voices. There's only 3 voice actors on the whole thing, and there's a small moment where the kids laugh at the end when they're going, "Ah!" and that was it. That was it. None of the other villagers spoke.
Were the kids who voiced the kids?
I have no idea. It was just a hey, like a hello, like
But they
goodbye. That was
there was
it.
giggling too.
Little giggling, but other
Okay.
than that, it was really just the
Master Padawan and the Elder.
Yeah.
I really liked the spareness of this episode. That it was just 3 people. It was a very like stripped down. Everything was very stripped down. You know, it was like it reminded me of like one act plays and just various theater things that I've done where it was in you had a shorter time span, and so I mean, you're not going to try to fit in like the same degree of characters and the same like amount of action. It's usually more condensed to like a single chapter in a story or something. And this felt like appropriate. Like the story felt like a perfect size for the medium and for the constraints that it was given. And I think it makes perfect sense that it wasn't like jam packed with all of this other stuff. So in that sense, this episode almost feels kind of long because it's kind of allowed to like live in the space that it is. And it doesn't feel too short, which some of the Visions episodes to me felt like, oh, this is to be continued, right? Like, or like kind of short in a way. Like maybe they stuffed a lot of ideas and it could have gone on longer, but this one felt like contained, like a poem.
Yeah, and even in just the dialogue being spoken, there's with it just being these three main voices happening, there's a lot of information to unpack in such a short, concise amount of time. I felt like all the lines told a story in itself. You know, you hold the record for number of planets visited by any other Jedi. I thought that was funny. Or did you choose the mountains because you were going to run into the Elder? Kind of this entity, just already like showing us this dynamic between the Padawan and the Jedi Master.
Which I think I wouldn't have picked up on as much if there was also a lot of music, like a lot of underscore happening. Right. Like it kind of forced me to pay attention to the way that they were talking to each other, which was kind of odd in a way. It was like every line they said felt really loaded with history.
Exposition for sure. Yeah.
Not necessarily. Well, I don't even mean that.
Like, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right, because it didn't really relate to the story.
I mean, like,
so in some ways, it wasn't exposition. It was just like, let's talk about everything that the viewer needs to know about us. Like,
and then I mean, like, even within the lines that they said, which may not have seemed necessarily related to the story, within those lines, like, I feel like they were written and delivered in such a way that made me infer even more between the lines. Like, everything was just so loaded. So I feel like, I don't know, like every minute of dialogue gave me like 5 minutes worth of dialogue. And that it communicated so much about their relationship through those lines.
Yeah, I was trying to decipher, given all of the information that it gives us, what this episode is like trying to say, if that makes sense. Like, what is the message here? Because it's so little that just happens. It's like two people arrive on a planet, find an old guy, fight him, and they kill him. And like that's the story, right? And there isn't like really much at stake other than their own lives and his life, right? Because like in The Village Bride, there's like a village captive thing that's at stake, or in the rock and opera, it's their friend that they're trying to save. But it's really like they just encounter a guy and they have to defend themselves, and then they defeat him. So in some ways, they're like I was like, well, so what is I mean, there's a lot of commentary about like age and experience that they bring up, right? He talks about, oh, if I was stronger, I wish I wish kind of like, I wish I could have fought you and I was stronger. And then the master uses that as like a lesson to be taught the Padawan about like, just know that, not everything lasts forever. Power doesn't last forever. So I think that just everything commentary on there, but it wasn't like, they didn't like hit you over the head with that thematic material, and they didn't really like really hammer home a particular moral or message or anything like that. So I'm curious of what y'all got out of this, like this episode.
I see what you mean. I mean, they in a way, they didn't even really solve the mystery of who this person was. They encountered him. He says a couple things. If I was old, I wish I fought you when I was younger. All these things. One of my favorite things he said was, when they're like, "Are you a Sith?" He said, "Nah, the Sith were too focused on overpowering each other," and that was it. That's all that was the only little thing of who he was
right. And he blew up the ship, so we're never gonna know, right?
Exactly. It was to me, it was almost like almost like if this was like setting up what was to happen in Phantom Menace in a way, because I remember what Darth Maul's like one line or two lines is, alas will reveal ourselves to the Jedi, alas the Sith will have their revenge. And they've been saying, oh, the Sith have been extinct for a millennia and all these things like that. So maybe this was kind of the first little glimpse perhaps in that timeline of are they, who's this, what do you know, We haven't felt this in such a long time. That's kind of what I got out of this episode. This kind of
Totally.
unsolved mystery that just opened up so many other like cans of worms.
Mm-hmm. 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 So in
Xanthe, what
that
did
way,
you?
So
yeah. Yeah, Xanthe.
so I this was one of this one made me think a lot, and it made me like this one made me like a little bit sad, and it made me really contemplative. Like I got a lot out of this one, definitely like in my top 2 or 3.
Mm.
And it I didn't really think about the mystery or anything that it solved or didn't solve. Like I think for me I think it was just a parable. Like it didn't the story, but you know me, I'm the one who doesn't care about plot. But it really just felt like a poem to me. Like I got a lot of meaning out of this one, and it really everything, like I said, like for me, it felt like every line carried so much weight, so much to think about, like so much to chew on every line, and the whole end was just like, holy shit, this is like almost going too fast. I'm like, slow down. I'm still like thinking about that last line you said. I don't know. I was also a poetry major, so
So what are some
so
of those
there's
like
that.
meanings that what did it make you think about? You said it made you
Well,
think about a lot of.
one of them is just like obviously the inevitability of aging, and not just in the normal way where it's like, oh, everyone ages and dies. It wasn't like in that usual way. It was just in a very like matter of fact phases of life, like type of way. Sort of like in talking about how the elders' skills are not necessarily fixed, and neither are the masters nor the Padawans. It's sort of like the calmness with which the master was saying that he only beat him because like he could have beaten him, or like the elder could have beaten him if he was younger. I don't know. It just, for me, that was like for one thing, it was like the Jedi like humility and acceptance of like the Force and just the way
Totally.
things work. Like there was no ego and like, oh, I beat him or anything like that. Like I feel like the clarity, I guess, sort of like the clarity of just what's up, like what's real, like what they can all count on. And yeah, I guess generationally, there's the elder, there's the master, there's the Padawan, and there's the kids. So there's like all these layers of interaction. We see interaction with like the kids and the Padawan and the master. The master doesn't really interact with the Padawan. I mean, with the kids, but the master interacts with the elder, and the elder interacts with the Padawan who's not ready for the elder, and the elder doesn't interact with the kids. So it's no one like touched all 4 levels except the Padawan, but he was quickly knocked out by the master, by the elder. And yeah, I mean, I think it was like a generational parable about like just coexisting in the world, and you know, the balance and stillness, which is how the episode began. And I mean, yeah, just all that.
The way of the galaxy, as the master put it. This is the way of the galaxy.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, like this whole time keep talking about the Vamga. They're like the wild animals called the Vamga. And something that I noted toward the beginning was like the Padawan's like, or no, the master's like, there are wild animals called the Vamga. If they attack, like they rarely attack, but don't provoke one. And the Padawan was like, if a Vamga is attacking the old man, it's lightsabers out, right? And the master does not answer him. Basically, he's like, well, let's just hope that doesn't happen. And that's it. And then there's like a joke that's like, again, so wise, which I did not understand. Like, why was that said kind of sarcastically? And then because I didn't understand it, that made me for me that like world did a lot of character building because I didn't understand it. Because I didn't
Mm.
understand their joke, it made me think, wow, they have a relationship where they're communicating on a level that is not immediately apparent to the outsider. So because I didn't understand it, I understood that they had something deep and inside between them.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's yeah, for sure.
Oh, and this before they figure out who the elder is, they think the elder is going to be like someone they have to protect.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I love a story that has a villain or whatever who is not a Sith, and it's so funny because I don't know. I guess I used to think, bad guys Sith. And here we have like all these episodes where they're like bad, but or, evil or whatever, but not Sith. Like distanced, like all that. The Elder's like just one more character who's distancing himself from the Sith. He's like, I'm not one of those. But there's a lot of like different grades of this. So anyway,
But he does have red lightsabers.
yeah,
So.
and you know what that means.
Speaking about all that, all right, I got one for y'all.
Okay.
Although that just kind of lays right into, you all knew this was coming. Right, here we go. See if I got this.
Yes.
I'm gonna step away from the mic. I'm sure that's still too loud. All right.
Dude, yeah.
A little bit like that.
Nice.
Smoking.
Now, there's a couple parts where things like that happen. Do we know where this one?
Is that the Elder?
That is the Elder.
When he appears, right? 9 minutes.
Yeah, a Jedi, and he throws off the cloak. And
Yeah.
hear this amazing shakuhachi playing by Dozan Fujiwara, who's this.
Is that who performed?
Yes. When I looked up the name, I was like, I know this one. Finally, I know these people. He's such a great shakuhachi player.
Gnarly.
Love that instrument.
And then later on, it goes. There's like this sort of, I don't know. Would this be called atonal? It's all over, like, and the strings are like in parallel motion this whole time.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah, it like doesn't even really the chords sliding all at the same time. That was present on a lot of the tracks, and I think it was a very like distinct like harmonic world.
Yeah, there's a lot of like atonality in this, just dissonance in this score, and then like starkly not in a way. Very less clustery, less a lot of different notes and dissonance, and then a lot of these parallel slidey strings, and then just this haunting, piercing shakuhachi throughout. One of my favorite ones, I didn't a little bit farther into this same cue, was this kind of wah from the shakuhachi just comes out of nowhere right when the Jedi Master goes, huh? As he senses the fight about to happen, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Such a great thing. And then we have this nice little childlike mandolin little things. Because for the amount of like short cues in this soundtrack, they're all pretty different.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like it feels like longer than 5 minutes because each of the ideas is really well developed almost. and really distinct. Like it's not like 5 minutes of whatever. It's a very packed 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you don't have, when you make these big events out of the times that you actually do have written, composed music for a show, they feel, they feel like bigger events, and therefore like your perception of them makes them feel almost longer, or like there was more space in between them than there might have been, as opposed to just hearing music for the entire time.
Yeah.
In some ways, you can just, it all kind of can blend together. In some ways, like I feel like like we talked about the twins, that episode was like through composed the whole, it was like music, like no more like music, keep going with the music, it's just like the whole thing just was like, holy crap, so much stimuli, just like your brain just kind of like can't make sense of it in some ways. There's just so much of it.
And this one, another thing is like the music mostly wasn't just underscore. It was like when there was music, it was like the full thing, the full cue played.
Oh yeah,
out in the open, like full thing.
And even though there was no like, at least from what I caught, no like theme,
for sure,
for this thing, that it was a lot of these gestures and textures that kind of represented what was going on. I mean, if there's one direct connection, it was the shakuhachi representing the elder, even when the elder wasn't present, because there's a short cue when they're arriving on the planet that kind of, it pops in. One's like, what are we looking for? I haven't felt this presence in a while. They get to the planet and the shakuhachi pops in. When we meet the elder, the shakuhachi is there. We're like, oh, okay, this is like his instrument in a way, his sound. And then at the very, very end, when he's the master's kind of pondering the mystery of what they just witnessed, what the heck just what happened, the score ends very darkly. And this we were saying it's not really a to be continued, but in a like, there was no resolve here in a way. And that shakuhachi comes back with this very kind of dark kind of ending. After a few of these like breathy bursts and things like that. And it never really played the same thing twice. It was just more like gestures and these kinds of like bends and breathiness and runs. At least that I caught.
I think so, I think there were a lot of similarities between, or I feel like there was definitely, if you mixed up all of the Visions tracks and played this one, any of the ones on this except for maybe the kids one, I would immediately be able to place it as being from this episode for sure.
Totally.
And even if maybe melodically, like I don't know how closely the shakuhachi parts maybe were repeated, because the shakuhachi seemed associated with the elder, right? Like, and some of those gestures felt similar, but again, not necessarily like pen to paper or pick out the exact melody. But because the harmony, I think the harmony was pretty consistent. And I feel like if we did some sort of pitch class analysis or something, like I think we would maybe uncover, definite similarities, like definite, and the planar like fourths and everything that was in like half of the tracks at least.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of the string like accompaniment to the shakuhachi stuff was very I don't know if I would call it like motivic, but a little bit like, and I'm talking about like this type of a lot of that. Yeah. So, and then there's I definitely heard that sort of those two notes echoed in a lot of spots. And the clusters.
Yeah.
It is harder to pick out like a melody when there's so many, when the notes are all clustered, like, whatever. So, James, do you have anything else to play us?
No, I definitely don't. And I will say like some of the percussion in this
Oh, what did you think of the percussion?
well, it's pretty. I mean, it definitely wasn't the focus of this episode. In many ways, it just was textural and support percussion, little tempo blocks, wood blocks, some tom work in there. Kind of similar in some ways to the duel. Some of the percussive sounds are pretty similar to the duel, and there might have been one other episode I remember hearing those textures, but yeah, I mean, it's pretty. In some ways, it's just wasn't the focus. I think what really stuck out to me in this episode was that kind of piercing, haunting sound of the shakuhachi, and just the sound design itself of the episode. I mean, we haven't talked too much about that yet, but I mean, just the sounds of the rain, the lightsabers,
good thunder.
the ship in the beginning. I really want to do some type of like long analysis of insides of Star Wars ships. So I find that really interesting, and I just want to like hear how different or how similar they are, because it's not something that I mean, you just assume that you're like, oh, that you recognize that sound, that it's kind of, it's very unique to Star Wars in some ways. Like, I don't know if you like turn on another sci-fi property if the inside of the ships really sound.
I've heard that
like
Star Trek Enterprise has a very distinct sound too. I don't personally
Yeah,
know, but I've heard that.
and it doesn't sound like Star Wars, right? I mean, I like the inside of that ship sounds like
probably not.
the inside of a Star Wars ship, right? So it reminds me of the inside of the Bad Batch ship. We talked a little bit about that during the Bad Batch season. That just like that, it's kind of that constant little white noise in the back, but it's very, very like it really elicits. There's something there that I'm sure there's got to be a sound bank somewhere of just like spaceship insides in Star Wars. Which one are we gonna pick? Number 325, and
I want that
like
sample pack, yeah.
right? Because they all like that's what I'm curious. It's like, are they the same? If I go back and watch a bunch of Star Wars
They're
movies,
not the
am I gonna
same.
find
For
out?
sure not.
Okay, so you think they're definitely not the same? Because I'm not entirely sure, because I've never gone back and listened. Right?
They're sitting there in a sound studio somewhere going, nah, that's 2 Millennium Falcon. We're in the Empire.
See, these are the conversations I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah, there's different. I would say that there are different signature sounds to different locations.
Yeah.
Even like the Lars Homestead in A New Hope will be different has its own ambiance too.
Yeah. But I'm just so curious, like for an episode like this, right? You're in the studio, you're sound designing a Star Wars Visions show, right? Like, where does that sound come from? Do you re-record it? Are you recreating it? Are you taking it from a bank of a bunch of Star Wars ships? Is it just like, hey, by the way, this is like the inside of the Gungan ship from like that one episode of Clone Wars or something like that, right? Like, is there like, this stuff, is stuff that I'm really curious about.
It's a good question.
That's the job I want. Desperate.
So yeah, I thought, because we spent so much time in that without music in this episode. It's interesting. It's interesting when it doesn't. I mean, when they arrive on the planet is when the music starts. It's kind of where the drama starts, right?
Yeah.
But we spend that whole first part of the episode just like on that ship, listening to them.
There were a couple. There was one track that was completely just percussion, and it was. I thought it was very short. It on the soundtrack. It's called Fight.
Yeah, is this during the fight?
Yeah. And the drums really were doing that whole like drums quickening as action is ramping up.
Right.
And then stopping when they're done fighting. And I thought that part was like I really liked that it was just drums there, and how much was conveyed with the rhythm of the drums and like the pace of them, because there are many parameters that you can adjust to ramp up energy, of course, like volume, speed, number of instruments, things in the harmony and whatever, but in line with like the whole fact that this was a very stripped down episode, like if you really just take it down to the essentials, you could convey it all with a single drum. Sound like a hand drum or whatever, like a single drum, just that can be very expressive. And in this case, it really was.
Right. And
this whole episode is an exercise in minimalism in some ways.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting that it's made by the same studio that made the most maximalist episode, I think, in this entire series.
Yeah. Bill. Yeah. Good point. I don't know if he did it for this episode, but you're right. David W. Collins did a lot of the sound effects for the Visions episodes. I think he would definitely be in good hands if he were helping. There was one other percussion instrument that I couldn't tell. Okay, in my notes I wrote elder groans, sounds like a frog choking. But before then, in Darkness and Rain, it sounded like there's this little part where it was like pitched percussion, but like water was maybe inside. I don't really know what.
Interesting. So are you talking about like listening to the soundtrack, not the episode?
No, both, because both. I could hear it in both.
Because the soundtrack doesn't have the sound design on it, right?
Right.
Like it doesn't have
exactly.
The
so I'm talking about something that was in the music.
Yeah. I'm listening. I haven't listened to the soundtrack. This is during the fight. Where about in the episode does that happen?
At about 10:45.
Okay.
And that's when the cue, that I only know the name of it because I found where that was on the soundtrack, and it's called Darkness and Rain.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think right at the beginning, it sounded like there's some like melodic percussion maybe, but it's very light. Are you listening to it? Do you hear it?
I am. You said at 10:45, right when he slices him, right when he slices Dan.
Yeah.
That's interesting because
or around there. Maybe it might be a little after. There's a pitched percussion, I swear. And it just sounded like tapping on a gourd with water in it or something.
It's really weird. Because I'm not hearing any percussion in this.
Yeah. Well,
but it's interesting you say that because I felt like a lot of the with the mixture of all this atmosphere and natural landscape, when that was present, there are these moments in the score that were kind of representative of these things, like perhaps this water percussion and these things when they're climbing the mountains. It was very kind of rocky in a way. When the rain starts, there's this like I have it on a harpsichord here, but this like kind of like little tinkly kind of a thing, and then that last track with the fight with it's just the drums. He's using the lightning technique, the Sith lightning technique, kind of a thing, and it supports that thunderous sound of this. It's out of the way because of the sound design, so it just adds this low rumble, and we've been hearing thunder this entire episode up until the rain part. I thought that was a really nice play on kind of working with the atmospheric sounds of this episode, really choosing the moments of when to bring in this music.
Yeah, and to be clear, the pitched percussion, I feel like it might not even be classified as percussion, but it was just maybe an instrument to me that sounded like something was being hit, and it was also in a rainy section, so it kind of like what Justin was saying, it seemed like it was there. It added to the feeling of there's rain, like it sounded like a heavy raindrop.
Yeah, I'm watching that over and over again. You talk about this. This is the spot where the elder injures Dan, right? It's like right there. That's 10:45. That's what's happening right there.
Yeah, it's whenever the music starts there,
and like the big flute hit comes in, right? Like comes
Anyone,
in,
if you're watching this, go to the track Darkness and Rain and tell me if you hear a pitched percussion.
There's a little like I'm listening to it now. Now we're all on this. I love it. This is
Yep, that's it.
kind of a thing.
That's it.
It sounds like
That
someone's like
gets So
tightening the
I'm not
skin.
been listening to this the soundtrack, but that's whatever sound this is gets completely lost while watching the actual episode.
Oh.
Like with either the lightsaber sounds or the rain or something. Like I can't hear what you're describing at all
Interesting.
at 10:36. It's really interesting. Yeah.
It's very light. Yeah, interesting.
Well, Justin, you heard it. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, it almost sounds like I hear what you're talking about, Xanthe. It's almost like if you had like a gourd drum filled with water. And you
Oh,
Yeah.
I just heard it.
Gotta
It's
tip it?
at 10:55, so it's like 10 seconds later.
sorry.
Yeah, you kind of
No, but I kept listening to 10:45 over and over again. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, so that's probably it's probably like a what's called a log drum.
A log
And-
drum?
Mm-hmm. Or that's no, that's probably actually I listened to it again. So that's likely like either like a drum head.
Oh, yeah.
But they're
Okay. But
probably
just changing
bending the pitch.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Like that.
tightening the skin, like a talking,
Yeah.
like one of those, or like what's it, the barin? That's
Yeah.
a technique that they use where they'll tighten the skin. You get this.
Yeah. So that's likely a drum head that they're hitting and tightening the head as they're going.
Got it. Okay. Well, it
Got
sounded
it,
watery
got
to me.
But it
Well,
works.
yeah, I
with
mean
the
It
rain.
sounded
No, but
great
it
for raindrops and
supports
stuff.
that
For sure.
atmosphere, that natural landscape.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's the aesthetic that kind of creates that those instruments can create. There's a lot of range in drums and membranophones, really, honestly.
It did sound
you know,
membranic.
yeah. Often, you put some beads on a head of a drum. You can create ocean sounds. You can create a lot of different textures with just some things hitting a drum head.
Totally.
So, I'm glad I'm glad I'm not going crazy. I must have listened to that like 3-4 times while you're on this stream. Like, what
said
are you hearing?
Around there.
Around
Okay.
Oh, 55.
I'll also something that really bothered me about the end was how that final cue, which takes us into the credits, how Disney Plus minimizes the credits, and we're hearing like the dramatic ending of this episode while seeing like up next.
Yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to video content or these automatic things. It really takes you out of it. And YouTube, it happens on YouTube videos too all the time.
Honestly, like I can't stand I avoid short YouTube videos now. Like, and I just really I try not to click on anything that's like it might be a YouTube short, because then after any video ends, you have to be faced with something else next, and it's too much.
Or the video hasn't even ended yet, and 4 things pop up on the screen. You're like, I can't see the last 10 seconds of this video because I've got all these options. I think I crashed Disney Plus like 4 times trying to maximize the credits again, and then like inch my way back to the one that I wanted to find. And then my internet or the Chrome or whatever just kept going, we're sorry, we can't load this page. Would you like to wait? It's like
James and I have talked about this many times, and how impossible it is to navigate Disney Plus, especially if you're trying to like go in any sort of order or just like stay calm about it, stay on the episode that you want to watch, scroll back. Like if you want to do any scrubbing, forget it. Like it's not going to be very friendly.
Well, I will say, I have to say, within the last month or so, I've gained some perspective.
Okay, please share.
I still don't like Disney Plus, but I've recently started using HBO Max for a couple of different shows and stuff, and that app is like, it's like almost unusable on my PS4. It's like it might be the worst app, like streaming app I've ever, or like it might be like the worst interface app I've ever seen ever, period. It's like right now on my PS4, HBO Max doesn't play anything. Like I will click a show and like no matter what the show is, I have to call HBO Max and like find out what's going on, because like for the last like 3 weeks or so, I'll click anything on there and I'll click it and it will not play. It'll just go to it's like about information stuff. It's so much worse than Disney Plus that I forgot how bad Disney Plus how bad I used to think Disney Plus was compared to this terrible app, HBO Max.
To be clear, I don't think Disney Plus is the worst necessarily.
Right.
I just think I personally think
Agreed,
all of the
but
streaming apps are bad.
they're all bad.
All
I
of
will
them.
say
None of them are good.
Well, Netflix works, but it's so abrasive with its autoplay.
And with it showing you a zillion choices. They all
God.
like all the it's like all the streaming apps have collectively decided to like all be shitty in similar ways.
In some way, yes.
And
yes.
so these critiques it's just that I happen to watch Disney Plus a lot, but they all freaking suck.
But I agree, but I haven't been watching Disney Plus for a lot of content lately, because there's not really much coming out right in these like the last couple months like that I've been interested in, because Star Wars Visions is over, quote unquote. So I haven't really been watching Disney Plus. So I've been like in HBO Max hell lately. So so anyway, I'm looking for the Book of Boba Fett coming out so I can be frustrated at Disney Plus again.
That's at HBO.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, does anyone else have any final thoughts about Star Wars Visions, The Elder?
It's a good episode.
Definitely a standout.
Is this one of the ones that they said were like getting like that they were thinking about basically treating it as a pilot to a? I know that they were thinking of that with the duo. There was definitely a show that I heard.
Was any of that legit, or was it just?
Or it's just maybe speculation. Maybe if anyone's in the chat or in the comments later, if someone can tell us. I swear to God, I heard them announce being like, they're going to make a show out of one of these episodes. And I don't remember which one it was.
Yeah. Or who.
But again, a lot of Star Wars news breakers have gotten a lot of stuff wrong lately. I don't know if y'all were. I know, Xanthe, you probably weren't, since you're usually very like, I don't want to see trailers. I don't want to see anything. But like, they had that big Disney Plus Day thing last week. Yeah, Justin, were you? And like everybody was like, "What are they going to show? Are they going to show like the Obi-Wan trailer? Are they going to show an Andor trailer?" And they showed nothing. They showed nothing came out for Star Wars. Nothing. There was not but everybody was like making predictions like, "Oh my God, we're going to see some Ahsoka footage. We're going to see some and there's nothing." And like on the Star Wars Twitter, like a month or two ago, they were like, Star Wars fans, mark down Disney Plus Day on your calendars. You won't regret it. And it turns out that they showed nothing. There's nothing. And everybody was just like, what? I was so excited before that day. I was like, oh my God, we're going to see some Kenobi footage. And I was so like.
There was a Kenobi thing circling around for like half a day. And everyone's like, this is just the sizzle reel that they
showed like a year ago. Yeah.
This is which I still have not seen.
I mean, you're wise, I will say, because if anything, it's just made me feel disappointed.
The only thing I've been hearing or getting news from is the various castings for Ahsoka. I know they just casted Sabine.
Yeah.
Which is we'll get a live action Sabine, which will be pretty cool.
It's gonna be gnarly.
Everyone's waiting. Who's gonna be Ezra? Because they're just like, we may have Ezra, we may have not have Ezra. I'm just like, just cast them already.
I begrudgingly saw that news, and I was like, oh,
okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
Honestly, the biggest Star Wars news is that the final Thrawn book came out. So
that is the biggest Star Wars news. In Xanthe's eyes, that is the biggest Star Wars news. Cheers
Thank you.
I gotta catch up on this.
And I don't have it yet, so I'm
likewise. I own the books, and I haven't read them yet, so I will.
Well, I will be so. I see on YouTube. Now we're like way off topic, but we'll wrap up. But I see.
I mean, there's like 5 minutes of music in this episode. I think we did pretty well for the least amount of music in any of these episodes.
I think there's a lot to talk about, and we did. The Masked Jedi said there's just fewer examples, and we all know where they are because there's only 5 minutes. The Masked Jedi said, wasn't it the 9th Jedi that might be a series?
That's what it was. Okay, good. I knew I wasn't crazy. Today is all just me finding out that I'm not.
But who
convinced.
is might? Who says might?
No, I don't know.
I don't know what the
But
source is.
all those legit Star Wars leakers that tell us the truth all the time.
But anyway, I've been seeing that there are Thrawn book reviews everywhere, and I'm like, just hoping that a YouTuber doesn't get brave enough, doesn't get so brave that they put a spoiler or like a hint in their title or in their thumbnail. I'm just like, anytime I think I'm seeing a hint of Thrawn, I'm like, shield my eyes.
Close.
Xanthe is like one of 5 people on the internet that are worried about getting spoiled for the new book. Thrawn
That is
book
not
that
true.
came out.
There are a lot of people on the internet.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm just trying to make myself feel better for not reading. I gotta say I need to catch up on High Republic, and I know that they just had the they've kind of finished their last wave, and they're going into the second one. But there's been all these, they're gonna do.
When are they dropping the
Acolyte-
second wave? Not for a while, right?
I don't think so. But I mean, they're gonna. I don't know if it's gonna be. They're gonna start filming the Acolyte soon. So I think High Republic is gonna be something to watch in the future for sure. So. I really want to make sure I stay up on it because it's going to be. But I honestly want to stay up on the Thrawn stuff because Thrawn's going to be hypothetically a big presence in the live action stuff too. Who knows how true to form they're going to stay, Xanthe? I'm sure that you're not totally thrilled by that, but
no, I'm neither thrilled nor not thrilled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but fingers crossed that they do it right.
Yeah. Well, there is no. Anyway, long topic. Long topic.
Next week.
So what is the next episode next week? Is the Masked Jedi next week? Not the Masked Jedi. He just the Masked Jedi is one of our viewers. The 9th Jedi.
No.
The Masked Jedi is the 9th.
No, it's Lapanocho.
Next week is Lapanocho.
Oh, that's right. Okay, cool.
Lapanocho.
Yeah, that's probably the one I know the least.
Yeah.
But I will, by next week, I will know stuff about it. Don't worry. Anyway.
Nobody eat rabbit for Thanksgiving. Because we got to talk about Lapanocho next week. Sorry, that was
wow, James. Thank you.
That was a mean joke.
Saying what was on everyone's mind, but not really.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of what kind of rabbit joke I could make, but that was the best I could come up.
The fact that your mind even went to gotta find a rabbit joke. Let's find it.
I mean, I have to say, that was the one when I saw that concept. I was like, that's interesting. There's rabbits in Star Wars. But then I remembered, what was that green rabbit character from the comics back in the day? What's his name? Jackson Rabbit. You know that character?
No.
So there is another rabbit species in Star Wars. So it's a thing. So not as odd as you might think.
Great. So now we have rabbits and we have little fleas, and I guess we will be back next week to talk about the rabbits that no one will eat.
Rabbits no one will eat.
In advance.
Stay tuned for the hair-raising conclusion.
Yeah.
The hair-raising conclusion.
Wait.
There it is. All right, with that.
Oh, okay. Well, with that,
That's our outro.